How did a vehicle that was originally designed for the German military become an icon of Beverly Hills and the Hamptons? This is the story of the Mercedes-Benz Wagon, or as you probably know it best, the G-Wagon. This is one of the most iconic cars ever made, certainly one of the most iconic cars ever made by Mercedes-Benz, a company with over 100 years of steep history. Now, as I mentioned, the original Wagon was introduced way back in 1979. They eventually made a civilian version after this was designed to be used by the German military, and it didn't arrive in the United States until about 2002 as a 2003 model year, where it suddenly was no longer focused solely on off-roading, but rather showing up to red carpet movie premieres in Hollywood. Sort of a very interesting transition in story. This is the new 2025 G63, the AMG model. There is a lot to talk about on this updated 2025 model, so why don't we dive on in? So let's begin with a tour of the G-Wagon's exterior. This thing is so iconic, it's so recognizable out on the road, and that's because Mercedes has not changed it all that much in multiple decades. Now, the first generation G-Wagon actually lasted from the late 70s all the way until 2018. They didn't introduce a second generation model until the 2019 model year, which is super crazy. But now there's been kind of a quick turnaround for this 2025 model year, which receives a facelift. So we'll talk about all of the changes on the 2025 model year. There are some differences up front. You'd have to really see it next to the outgoing model to really spot a lot of the differences. The G63 is going to get the Panamericana grille with the vertical slots. You're going to get horizontal slots on the base G550 model, which is now an inline six. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We do have an AMG badge right here. We also have our Affalterbach crest here on the hood. We still have the really cool, very industrial looking marker lights. We've got nice LEDs in here as well. I'm loving this brush guard here on the bottom, just makes it look really tough and really cool. We've also got a really nice set of wheels here. We've got 11 different wheel options if you include all of the different colors. These are the 22-inch AMG forged wheels. They cost $4,150, but I do think they look really great on this car. Again, there are so many different wheel options and so many different color options. There's actually 12 free options and 25 manufacturer ones ranging from $1,750 all the way up to $7,500. This one is called Hyper Blue Magno. Magno just means matte in Mercedes parlance. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. You could cruise around Miami in this and it would just look so perfect. Actually, I don't like matte paints usually because they tend to look dirty anytime any dust or whatever gets on them, but this color actually hides the dirt extremely well. I'm absolutely adoring how the G-Wagon looks in this color, and you can get some outrageous ones. They have a yellow, they have a green. Anything is almost possible on one of these G-Wagons. It has the most customization that I think I've ever seen on any Mercedes model. Now, we also have an AMG performance package that's going to get us these red brakes. They are bigger now on the G63. We've got a few aerodynamic changes up here on the A-pillar. That's going to make it a little bit quieter when you're driving on the highway. We've got our V8 bi-turbo badge letting us know that we have a twin-turbo V8 under the hood because we have an AMG, and the exhaust from that big old V8 comes out of these gorgeous looking side pipes that are so great sounding. You'll hear as we get out on the road, but I will say their placement underneath the rear door means that your children may or may not burn their legs as they're getting in and out of the vehicle. That might be a reason to consider the lesser 6-cylinder G-Wagon. And then here at the back, again, they just haven't messed with this formula too much. We've just got the big giant spare tire here on the back. G63, if you know, you know, you know that this thing is an absolute icon. You don't need any more badging than that. Now, before we start talking about the interior of the G-Wagon, I can't get there until I talk to you about these doors. They have these exposed hinges here on the outside. This has been a staple of the G-Wagon since it was new, and we have this very unique, very old school sort of door handle here where you actually click the kind of key lock to open it. Now, interestingly, the G-Wagon, despite its immense price, did not used to have keyless access where you could kind of just tap on the actual handle to lock and unlock it. Now it does. That is actually a very recent addition to the G-Wagon, if you can believe that. But the real reason these doors are so special is how they sound. Just listen to me open it. Oh, yes. And then as I shut it, click. It makes this interesting, old school, solid feeling sound that you just don't get in a lot of modern cars. Listen again. It sounds like a literal bank vault closing. It is so cool. And the other interesting thing is, because these doors are so heavy, you really have to slam them shut, and it would create kind of a pocket of air as it shuts that would kind of create like a pressure zone. Mercedes actually thought of that, and you get this little vent back here. Now, you might wonder what this is for. When you shut the doors and you hold your hand right here, you'll actually feel a little gust of wind. That is to allow the excess air that is being pushed from these crazy doors to escape, so that it doesn't disturb the people inside. Now that is true engineering brilliance. Now, as we do step inside, you'll see that we have this absolutely gorgeous white leather with this diamond quilting. The diamond quilting does cost extra. You don't always get it on a G-Wagon, but I think it looks brilliant, so you might as well do it. Although I might suggest against getting white, because you can see here at the bottom, you can definitely tell that it is a little bit darker than it is here at the top from being sat on and all of that. And this car only has about 2,000 miles on it. This is a heated and ventilated massage seat. We've got the little AMG logo here, very comfortable. You can get about 33, no, I did not stutter, 33 different interior colors. You can get black, you can get like a green accent, a blue accent, almost anything. Like I mentioned with the exterior, there is almost an unlimited amount of customization that you can do on a G-Wagon, more so than pretty much every other Mercedes model on sale, including the S-Class. And as I hop in, I do want to mention, we do have this running board down here. It's very small, very hard to get your foot on, so it kind of makes for a little bit of an awkward step up getting into the vehicle. Just something to consider if you have a difficult time getting into tall vehicles. And then, as I mentioned before, I have gotten used to slamming the doors on this, because if you just close this in the kind of normal way, that is not fully closed. It is going to tell you so. You really have to slam it. Now we're going to go ahead and start it up. And we see that the G-Wagon's interior has gotten quite a lot more modern than previous incarnations. We've got the dual 12.3-inch setup. This is new for the G-Wagon. But as you can see, if you've seen any of my semi-recent videos with Mercedes vehicles, this is not the newest MBUX system, which is completely fine with me. This is the level that I really like. It has Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, both wireless, no problems there. We have the little trackpad down here, so you don't have to use the touchscreen. You can also swipe here on the steering wheel to control it. You can use this side of the steering wheel to control the gauge cluster. You can change how the gauge cluster looks. We do have Super Sport and Track Pace because we have the AMG G63 model with the AMG Performance Package. We also have a really cool off-road screen, which is just so cool. You can have like an altimeter. It tells you like the degree of angle and all of that stuff. And then we do have our locking differentials down here. We have not one, not two, but 3 locking diffs, a center, rear, and front locking differential with low range. This thing, I'm not going to be able to demonstrate in this video, but can do some absolutely outrageous off-roading. We do also have this big button that says off-road cockpit. I like that there is a big, quick button to go ahead and push that. We're going to see a lot of this information displayed up here. You can see the active suspension that we have on this car, how it's articulating. You can see if I rotate the steering wheel, you can see that the steering angle actually moves here, telling us by how many degrees. We have our position, latitude, and longitude, really cool. We have our engine temperature, engine data, all sorts of stuff that we can kind of switch to on here. We also have a clear view camera here, so it kind of makes the hood look invisible as you kind of drive around and you're doing off-roading. So just a lot of really cool functionality in here. And they have kind of kept this cabin looking a little bit rugged, a little bit utilitarian. We do have carbon fiber here, but you can get wood, you can get other trims as well. I'm loving this giant grab handle that says Manufacture on it. We have the carbon fiber, but again, different trims are available. We've got an amazing Burmester audio system in this car that just sounds so great. Very simple, very not so special sunroof, but again, I'm fine with that. And then we do have other luxuries. We have our wireless charging pad here. We actually have heated and cooled cup holders down here. That is a really nice touch as well. Gorgeous ambient lighting. So this is a really cool mixture of luxury and ruggedness all in one vehicle. So I'm really just not believing the 39 and a half inches of legroom back here. It just doesn't feel that big, nor does the trunk really feel all that maximized. Again, it's just mainly due to how the G-Wagon utilizes its space. It's very tall. We've got these very big boxy fenders where our wheel arches are. The cubic feet is not that bad. It's 37.4 cubic feet back here, 68.6 if we fold down the seats. That's pretty comparable to what you get in a Defender 110, 34 cubic feet behind those rear seats, but a Defender has about 79 cubic feet, so a lot more when you go ahead and fold down the seats. And there's a big reason why, and it'll become very apparent to you. So folding down these seats is a little bit tricky. It's very old school. You actually have to grab those seat bottoms, and then now you can go ahead and fold this, and it really doesn't fold flat. You can see that there's kind of a huge gap there. So like I said, if practicality is your #1 priority, you probably are better off with something like a Mercedes GLE63 instead of a G63, but you don't get this kind of door slam on a GLE, and that might be worth the trade-off in practicality. All right, so now that we've gone through the history of the Wagon and talked about its amazing military background and its off-road prowess, it's time to find out why literally nobody who buys one cares about any of that stuff whatsoever, because nobody, or almost nobody, who buys one of these is ever actually going to take it off-roading. In fact, most people care more about performance and luxury and all that stuff, oddly, which is why so many people buy the AMG variant, the G63, the one that we have right now. The 4-liter twin-turbo V8 with 577 horsepower and 627 pound-feet of torque. Now, interestingly, Mercedes has made AMG G-Wagons for a long time. There was the G55, the G63, they even had a V12 G65, which was crazy. But they never actually had race start, Mercedes' amazing launch control technology. This does. Let's find out what it can do. Let's go. Oh my goodness. Oh, it bucks. Oh my God. That was nuts. That was 0 to 60. Restart did not actually activate there, but that was 4.78 seconds. Mercedes says this will do 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, which is about 0.3 seconds quicker than the outgoing G63. So we will try that again. Hopefully we'll be able to get race start to work. But that was still a crazy time in what is essentially a giant box that was built for military off-road purposes. And the other thing that's pretty crazy about this is that we have the AMG Performance Package. $4,400 gets you AMG active ride control with hydraulic roll stabilization. Now that is something that is also new for G-Wagon. Now these things had a bad habit of, even the fast ones, even the AMGs, they were just not very good to drive. They were still very industrial, very military. They even had a recirculating ball steering, which is something that the Jeep Wrangler still uses. Not exactly sporty. This new G-Wagon, the 2nd generation model, has rack and pinion. I'm not going to go ahead and say it's like the best Mercedes offers, but it definitely feels like something that belongs on road car, you know? And then subsequently, an AMG performance model like this. But the suspension is kind of the really big difference. So the active roll stabilization can kind of stop the vehicle from pitching as you toss it into a corner. And honestly, it works big time. We're about to go through some corners now. I've timed this out perfectly. And here we go, a little bit too fast around this corner. It's just kind of going flat, which is ridiculous. I'm not getting a lot of feedback through the wheel. It is very numb through the wheel, not very direct at all, not sharp, not your typical AMG. So if you are looking for a driver's SUV, this certainly is not it. But when I first got this car delivered, I was like, why the heck does this have an AMG performance pack? What could you possibly need with that? And I think that question has actually been answered to me. If you're a wealthy person that can afford this car and your home is somewhere where there's lots of windy roads like this, and you have kids in the back or a dog or what have you, you don't want to be pitching and yawing and falling all over yourself every time you have to drive up a mountain. And with this hydraulic suspension, it really doesn't feel like that at all. It's very impressive, because now what I'm going to do is twist my AMG drive mode into comfort, which is going to put the suspension back into its normal mode, and we'll see what it's like in that case. Okay, all right, yes, it definitely moves around a lot more when it's not in the Sport Plus mode. Yeah, you definitely feel the difference between those drive modes in the suspension. I'm going to go ahead and put it back into Sport Plus before we take this final corner here. All right, again, way too fast. Yeah, it just sticks. No vehicle that looks like this and has the off-road capability that this does should be able to stay this flat and level. And you get other stuff with that AMG package besides the roll stabilization. You get the red brake calipers, you get the AMG track pace, which has all of your racing information and stuff like that. And they even increase your top speed from 137 to 147. Very important. And it is worth knowing that if you want that active ride, you don't have to get the AMG Performance Package. You can get the AMG Off-Road Package. It's really expensive. It's like $13,400, but it gets you the active ride. It gets you 20-inch wheels instead of like big 22s. It gets you a roof rack, which is kind of cool, with a little ladder in the back, a wooda wada, mud flaps. You get a professional rear tire in the back, black underguards, rubber mats. It's pretty cool, I will say. If you want a very different vibe than what you would get from, let's just say, a normal G63 with like its performance stuff, that one looks very tough, very off-road like. All right, we're in a position to try launch control again. Race start, ready? Oh, here we go. This is full race start. Oh, it bounces. Whoa. That was 0 to 60 in 3.97 seconds, under 4 seconds, so we beat Mercedes' estimated time. We were bouncing all the way. That was so, oh my gosh, so quicker than Mercedes says. This exhaust, I mentioned to you the side pipe exhaust. Oh, it sounds deeper than other AMG models that I've driven with this exact same engine in recent years and recent months. It sounds like James Earl Jones clearing his throat. Luke, no, I am your father. That's what it sounds like. It's so deep. It's this baritone bellow, this coughing of clearing my throat. It's very manly. It's very cool. I do love a good side pipe, and hearing that combined with this kind of old school driving experience is such an absolute delight. I really just didn't understand this whole G-Wagon thing. I thought to myself, like, okay, it's off-roady, but nobody's ever going to use that. It's boxy, but like that's going to make it worse to drive on the highway. But it somehow all comes together in a way that a Jeep Wrangler or a Ford Bronco just doesn't. It has that kind of old school charm, but then it's still a Mercedes. It's built extremely well. You can put it into comfort mode and then it really quiets down. They've done some stuff with the aerodynamics to make it a little bit quieter so it doesn't really roar on the highway. And then it becomes kind of just a normal Mercedes SUV. It's not as practical as something like a GLE or what have you, but it's just infinitely cooler than that. And I will take this time to now talk about the engines, because we've been talking about the G63 with its 577 horsepower and its, crazy performance and its 14 mpg city, 16 mpg highway. And if you have this kind of money, I guess why not? You want the V8, you want the snarl, you want the noise, you want the pantomime. But they do offer a base model now, and it doesn't have a V8. It's the G550. It now has Mercedes 3-liter inline-6 turbo mild hybrid. I should mention that this V8 is also a mild hybrid, so it has really smooth start-stop. All of the engines now have mild hybrid. 443 horsepower, and it does 0 to 60 in like 5.3 seconds. So it's not that fast, but it's going to be fine for most people. But what you're not going to get is that kind of V8 grrr rumble that I think a lot of G owners really, really want. And I've spoken to quite a few G owners who have driven and reviewed this new inline-6 powered one, and they're just not that into it. And it kind of makes them want to step up to this G63 even more. And I didn't get that before. I thought, who cares how powerful the engine is in something like this? But after driving it now with these suspension improvements and the launch control and all of that stuff, it's definitely not sporty, but there is something really cool about having all of that performance in a car that kind of does everything. So I do get it a little bit more than before I reviewed this car. And the other interesting model to mention is the G580, which is a new model for 2025. It's actually called the G580 with EQ technology. Possibly the worst name I've ever heard Mercedes come up with, but it is interesting. It's all electric, 579 horsepower, so kind of in the middle. It's actually a little bit more powerful by 2 horsepower compared to this, and 879 pound-feet of torque. Now, it is really heavy, so 0 to 60 takes 4.6 seconds, so it's a kind of a mid-level performance model, but all electric, kind of cool. It does make kind of a noise, but again, I think maybe G-Wagon owners will want something a little more pantomime-y like this, a little bit more crazy, that I can pass my slower garbage truck like a monster, yes! And maybe the electric doesn't quite do that for people, but something that I would consider. It doesn't have great range at 239 miles, but I'm really hoping to get one of those in for testing rather soon, because I'd love to see which one of the two I prefer between this crazy G63 model and the all-electric. That's going to wrap up our time with the 2025 Mercedes G63. If you have to ask the price, you can't afford it, yada, yada, yada. The G63 is going to start at $186,000 even. This one that we've been testing is about $220,000, and you can actually make it a lot more expensive if you want to just go crazy on all of those manufacturer customization options. Something to consider if you don't care about the prestige of having the G63 and the V8 noise, and you want to pay maybe a smaller markup at the dealership, you can opt for the G550 with its inline 6-cylinder for $148,000. It's a lot cheaper, but again, like I said, if you can afford that, you probably can just go all out on this G63. The other thing to consider is the G580 with EQ technology. If you have a Tesla and you want to trade in for it, maybe you have a Hummer or a Rivian as well, and you just want that next level of status, the G-Wagon is now available as an all-electric. I have not driven it yet, but for $161,500, that's a lot less than this G63. You'll save money on gas, although gas is probably not your number one priority when you're buying a car like this, but you get all of the off-road capability and then some in the electric model. You get a smooth all-electric powertrain. That just sounds really intriguing to me, and I really can't wait to drive it. Honestly, before spending a week with the G63, I just didn't understand this vehicle. I thought a Land Rover Defender is better on road. I think it, probably looks a lot more modern. I thought that, there are just way better Mercedes-AMG SUVs even, like a GLE 63 is just better for the highway, better at carrying kids, better at all of that. But now I finally get it. You get looks in this car. You get stares in this car. You know, even though you're never going to do it, that you can take it up a mountain and it will just tackle it no problem. Then you can wash it and show up at your red carpet premiere the next day. There really aren't that many cars that do what this car does, at least as well, and Mercedes knows it, and that's why they charge the price that they do for it, because if you know what a G-Wagon is, you see it coming, and you know that the person who is behind the wheel is important, and that is maybe worth its weight because this is quite a heavy car, maybe worth its weight in gold, but I definitely get it after spending a week with this car. Let me know in the comments, would you buy a G-Wagon, or would you save like half the price and get a Lexus GX or a Land Rover Defender or even a Wrangler or a Bronco? I want to hear from you in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos, and I'll see you next time.